Hi my love, welcome back. It is Kay, your astrologer, your spiritual witch and your numerologist. So planet Mercury has actually just turned direct today. So it is ideal and it is divine timing for me to do another Planet 101 so we can have a deep dive into what this particular planet means. This will be under the Learn Astrology with Me playlist that's here on the channel. And for anybody who has joined me on Patreon, thank you so much. For anyone who's thinking of it, thank you so much. Check that out. The links are below, and everything that we learn here or everything that I go through with you, you can learn to apply to your own chart or a chart of your choice. Anyone who wants to skip this introduction, check the description box. Everything will be timestamped. You can go and take a look at what Mercury means or how it can be interpreted in a particular sign or a particular house. So you can check there and you can jump to whatever part of the video you wish to. So who and what is Mercury? So this is the planet that deals with travel, IT and short trips that we might make. He is what's considered a personal planet. So we have these 5 planets that are personal planets because they make up a person's personality. And when it comes to Mercury, this will represent how a person communicates, like what their communication style is and how they think. But most importantly, this can show you, or he can show you in a person's chart, what that person thinks is important in life, depending on where Mercury is situated in that person's birth chart. Now, how a person thinks and how they react to things does depend on the sign that Mercury is under as well at the person's time of birth. So in terms of position, he is a very, very close planet from the sun. He is the next planet, so he's the first planet. He does retrograde 2 or 3 times a year for about 20 days roughly. And for anyone who's not familiar with retrograde and what this means, it basically means when, from, you could say from an Earth's perspective, it appears that the planet is moving backwards. Yeah, it appears that they're moving backwards. So they start to retrograde through a sign. So Mercury in this instance, he started in a particular sign. Gemini. I'm going to say Gemini. It could have been Gemini, but let's just take the Gemini example. So he will retrograde back all the way through that sign and or to whatever point he needs to. And when the planet does this, it's basically a chance for us to go back to a situation, person, place or thing in life that we need to deal with. And in terms of how we deal with it will depend on what planet is retrograding. And when we talk about Mercury, it's about how we think about a situation, person, place or thing, or it's an opportunity for us to rethink a situation, person, place or thing. So this is a little bit about Mercury. So some fun facts before we get into it. We all have a Mercury return, and this will happen every, say, 10 to 11 months for us all. But because of the amount of times that Mercury can retrograde in a year and go back for a sign, you may have a Mercury return more often. And what this means in astrology is that your planet Mercury has returned to the point that Mercury was at your time of birth. So for example, if your Mercury in your birth chart is at 2 degrees of Cancer, for example, and then, you know, in one particular year or every 10 or 11 months, he will return back to 2 degrees of Cancer on that year. That would be your Mercury return. And what that would show you in a chart is how you may think or perceive things for the next 12 months or for the next year to come. It's also where you're likely, or where you should, you could say, where you're being pointed to by the universe to direct your actual mental energy. So where you should be focusing your mental energy. It can also give you an idea about what trips and travel you may make for that particular year as well. So that is a Mercury return. Now Mercury rules over the signs of Virgo and Gemini, and the 3rd house in astrology, the 3rd house being the house of siblings, extended family like aunts and uncles. It's the house of our childhood experiences. It's our early education. So not higher education that we do at university, but any education that's like a lower level. So primary school, obviously, or kindergarten, that kind of age group. When we become adults, this is more education that's like self-improvement, online courses and that kind of thing. It's also the house of our neighborhood, where we live and how we communicate, of course. Now, his position from Earth, he is the 2nd away. So we have Venus, we have the Sun, we have Venus, and then we have Mercury. So that's how it will go. He is the 2nd away. He is actually a genderless planet, even though I'm calling him him. Mercury is one of those planets which is genderless. They're all assigned a gender. This one is neutral, so it could be male or female, but I'm just calling him him. And technically, when it comes to Mercury, he can only ever really be in the same sign that your sun is in. So whatever star sign you are, so for example, I'm an Aquarius, then my Mercury is likely to be in Aquarius as well. But that's because of how close the planet is to the sun. But some people do have it in a different sign. And what this can show you in your chart is that if you have your sun and your Mercury in the same kind of sign, it shows that your thinking and your characteristics as a person are pretty consistent. So how you think is basically how you act. If you have your Mercury in one sign and then your star sign, say you're a Libra, and then you have your Mercury in the next sign, which would be Scorpio, then that shows that there's conflict between your natural nature, like how you are as a person, and how you act and how you think. So the two may not be in line. At times there can be conflict within yourself or conflict within basically how you go through life. So that's an interesting fact. So if you do know your birth chart, take a look. Is your Mercury in the same sign as your sun sign? So is your Mercury in the same sign as your star sign? Drop me a comment, let me know, how does this resonate? Are you consistent or do you sometimes feel conflicted? So let's take a look at Mercury in each sign and in each of the houses. Now this is just generally speaking, and this is not looking at anybody's chart. So Mercury in Aries, I call this my thoughts can become things placement, because Aries is that sign that is about motivation, drive, it's about me first, it's about let's go. So if you have this kind of energy influencing a person's thoughts, then obviously it can make things come to life. You know, your thoughts, what you think, you can really make it come to fruition. Now the degree that Mercury is in any sign will impact on how Mercury operates. But generally speaking, if your Mercury is in Aries at about 15 to 21 degrees, then in astrology we say that this is slightly strengthened. So your Mercury is in a slightly strengthened position. And if you have Mercury in the first house but not under Aries, so if you just have Mercury in your first house under another sign, this can indicate a person who places themselves first, because the first house is all about us, you know, who we are, what we want on a soul level, our personality and our approach to life. So your Mercury here under any sign, you know, it could indicate that you place a lot of this first and this is what you think about. It can also show someone who's quite fiery when they communicate, and their thoughts surround what they want mainly in this life. They are the focus, and their communication style can be very, very similar. So with someone with their Mercury in their first house, even if it's not under Aries, when they communicate or when they debate with someone, they're normally at the center of what it is that they're trying to say. Whatever the point is that they're trying to make, it's normally centered around what they want and how they feel. So this is Mercury under Aries and in the first house. Give me a comment. Is your Mercury under Aries? How does this resonate for you? Is your Mercury in the first house? Drop me a comment. Let me know, how does this resonate for you? Okay, so moving on, Mercury in Taurus. So I call this my thinking of the long term and stability placement if someone has their Mercury in the sign of Taurus. And this is because Taurus is the sign that is about foundation, stability, money, the finer things in life. He is about love, also very rich things, whether this be rich food, rich clothing, or just having generally like quite rich and, you know, out there tastes about things in life. This is all Taurus's domain. So as always, the degree that Mercury is at in any sign will impact how Mercury does operate. But generally speaking, if you have your Mercury in Taurus between 9 to 15 degrees or at 21 degrees, we would say that this is a Mercury that is slightly strengthened. Okay, it's in a slightly strengthened position. So you might feel this quite a lot, this energy of Mercury under Taurus, if it's at that degree. Now, if you have Mercury in the second house, which is in modern astrology the house that Taurus is kind of the ruler over, not under the sign of Taurus, but if you just have your Mercury here in the second house, you could be someone who thinks a lot about money, you know, because this is the house of money, personal finances, and what we own as people. So your security, your stability, and certainly your finances are something you think about and that are key for you, or the person who has it here. You have a good mind, or a person who has their Mercury in the second house, they could have a good mind to make money. You know, they've got a good handle on how to work with money, how to make it, what to do with it, you know, because so there could be someone who's quite good in this area of life. This person with their Mercury in the second house could be someone as well who has very strong values as a person, you know, very strong values, morals, and ethics, because that would come under the second house as well. Their communication style, this could be someone who sees the bigger picture and the long term, and they could be quite mature when it comes to their approach with communication as well. So someone with their Mercury here in the second house, that's basically kind of how they might decide to communicate or how they would go about life. So you drop me a comment, you let me know, is your Mercury under Taurus? Does any of this resonate? Is your Mercury in the second house? You let me know, drop me a comment. Okay, so moving on, Mercury in Gemini. So I call this my I'm a people person placement. And this is because, first of all, Gemini is the social butterfly of the zodiac. This is a sign that is a great team player. It can be indecisive at times. And also, what is key here is that this is the sign that Mercury rules over. This is one of the signs. So Mercury is a ruler of the sign Gemini. So it's naturally a really, really good fit if you have your Mercury, or a person has their Mercury under Gemini. Now, the degree, as with all signs, will impact, you know, how Mercury operates. But generally speaking, if you have your Mercury under Gemini between 1 to 7 degrees or at 21 degrees in your chart, this is slightly strengthened, okay? So Mercury in Gemini's area of life, or where Gemini typically rules in modern astrology, which would be the third house, this could be that for this person, what they think about a lot is education and learning. Their siblings, their environment, and their childhood experiences are all things that they might think of a lot, or might spend a lot of mental energy here, or put a lot of mental energy into those areas of their life. Someone who has their Mercury in their third house, I personally, as an astrologer, would say that this is a natural teacher or a very dedicated student, because this is the house of education, especially early education. So a natural primary school teacher or kindergarten teacher, or a teacher who teaches people who are in the early stages of their education. They're not in university or higher education. This could be someone who was very good at that stage in their life as well, depending on what Mercury is doing as well. But this is just generally speaking. A person with their Mercury in their third house could be someone who likes IT a lot, or they could be quite IT savvy and love social media, technology, and all this kind of thing. Things like writing, reading, and blogging could be really key for someone who has their Mercury in their third house. So especially if you have your Mercury in your third house under Gemini. But if you have one or the other, I would definitely say with Mercury's placement here, basically how you communicate with the world and how you express yourself openly with the world via writing, blogging, and so forth, social media. These are all things that would be well suited to a person who has their Mercury in the third house, or they may simply just enjoy it because they have their Mercury placed here as well. So you drop me a comment, you let me know how this resonates. Do you have your Mercury in Gemini? Do you have your Mercury in your third house? What do you think? What's your opinion on this? What's your life been like so far with your Mercury placed here? Okay, so Mercury in Cancer. Now, I like to call this my emotional intelligence placement. And that is because Cancer is the sign that deals with things like care and nurture, the family, intuition. It's a mother figure. It's a very feminine energy as well. Now, as with all signs, as I've mentioned so far throughout the video, the degree that Mercury is at into a sign will obviously impact how Mercury operates, as well as how he is interacting with other planets. But generally speaking, Mercury in Cancer at about 20 or 21 degrees, we could say this is a slightly strengthened Mercury, so this is a good position. But if you have your Mercury in Cancer between 11 to 19 degrees, what this can bring for a person is a bit of worry or concern about whatever area of life Mercury is in at that particular degree. So where Mercury is placed in a chart, what house of life it's placed in between 11 to 19 degrees, for that person, possibly that part of their life or that situation, that, you know, whatever that subject deals with, whatever the house is about, that could bring some kind of worry to that person in this life, and they might think about it a lot if the Mercury is at that particular degree. I don't want anybody to worry about this. If that's you, if you do have your Mercury between 11 and 19 degrees, under Cancer in a particular part of your chart, don't worry about it. I would say just reflect on it and how true is this for you? Have you been worried about that part of your life? And drop me a comment and let me know. So if someone has their Mercury in the house that Cancer is typically attached to in modern astrology, which is the fourth house, but not under the sign of Cancer, let's just say someone has their Mercury in this particular area, their thoughts could surround their family a lot. This is a very family orientated person because the fourth house is the house of the family, the private life, the upbringing, the childhood, the mother figure. So this could be someone who thinks about all those things quite often. They could be someone who is quite emotionally intuitive in terms of, how they think about these things and caring for others. The communication style of someone who has their Mercury in their fourth house could be that they are a person who likes to tap into how someone feels, and then they might adjust how they communicate with them. So they look at how a person is responding, and how a person is coming across to them emotionally, and they may think about that and adjust their communication style based on what energy they're receiving from the other person. So this is what I mean by an emotional intelligence kind of placement. When you've got Mercury under Cancer, those two energies can bring that kind of emotional energy into this placement, even though Mercury is typically about our thoughts and it's kind of detached from our emotions. But if you add Cancer in the mix, it will give you a lot of emotional intelligence. Well, certainly from my perspective as an astrologer, this is what I would say. So you drop me a comment, you let me know how that resonates. Do you have your Mercury under Cancer? Do you have your Mercury in your fourth house? How does this resonate? Drop me a comment, let me know. Okay, so moving on, if we have Mercury in Leo, this is what I like to call my what's fun in life placement. And this is because Leo is that sign that is obviously the brave heart. We all know that. He's bold. This is the sign that loves life and loves to indulge. And this is the sign that will teach us how to enjoy life and make the most of it while we're here. This is a very direct sign, and Leo is obviously a very caring and generous sign as well. So when it comes to having Mercury under a sign like Leo, how the degree will impact how Mercury operates or how this person is. But generally speaking, if someone has their Mercury under Leo from 7 to 13 degrees or at a 21 degree point, we could say that this is a slightly strengthened Mercury. So this person may feel or act or think in the way that Mercury under Leo is, in a very pronounced way. It's very, very strengthened. Now, if this person or a person or you, depending on who you're here for, has Mercury in the fifth house, which is the house that Leo is typically attached to in modern astrology, but not under the sign of Leo, this could be for this person that their thoughts surround their enjoyment of life. Basically, they want to have fun. That's what they think about. They always think of the light-hearted situation or the light-hearted side of things. This could be someone who's very creative as well. They are naturally more of a creative thinker rather than someone who, like, say for example, an Aquarius who is very logically based on things. They look at things logically. They like facts, they like figures, they like data. So a Mercury under Leo could bring someone who's more creative with their thoughts. Now, one thing I really, really, really want to emphasize about Mercury in the fifth house, because I actually have my Mercury in the fifth house, not under Leo, but I have it in the fifth house. People with this placement, and I have seen it before, they typically can be natural writers, especially creative writers, and I would say this is true for me, or really good public speakers. So have a look in your chart or reflect on the person that you're here for. If they have Mercury in their fifth house, do they have any natural skills with their ability to write, or their ability to blog, or their ability to engage on social media through writing? Like, how does this person, or how do you resonate with that? Because I often find that this placement can bring out a naturally creative writer, whether it's non-fiction writing or whether it's creative writing and it is fiction. I would tend to say, and I would vouch for this, obviously being a writer with my Mercury in my fifth house, that this placement can bring around a good writer. Now, generally, when it comes to communication style with someone who has their Mercury in their fifth house, This could be someone who's pretty light-hearted, and I can resonate with that as well. A personable person, someone who's approachable. This is someone who's not gonna like mean mug you when you walk up to them. This is not someone who's gonna, have their resting bitch face on 24/7. Someone with their Mercury in their fifth house is probably going to be a pretty open person, under this kind of Leo placement, if you like, in modern astrology. It could be someone who's quite open to communicate and to get on with and chat to others, probably someone who can have a conversation with just about anyone, or maybe someone like me who talks a hell of a lot. So you drop me a comment, you let me know, how does this resonate? Do you have your Mercury under Leo? Do you have your Mercury in your fifth house? How does this resonate for you or the person that you are here for? Okay, so Mercury under Virgo, I call this my let me take a closer look / analytical mind placement. And this is because Virgo is, first of all, known to be the perfectionist and the analytical one of the zodiac. It is a reserved energy. It's also very hardworking, and it likes to be of service to others. Now, the degree that, Mercury is at under any sign will obviously dictate how Mercury operates. And what's important to note as well is that Mercury is the ruler of this sign. This is the other sign that Mercury rules. So Mercury will rule Gemini and Mercury will rule Virgo. So having your Mercury under Virgo is generally a good look because it's in its home place. Now, if you have Mercury in a chart or in a birth chart under 1 to 7 degrees or at the 21 degree point, we could say that this is a Mercury that is slightly strengthened and in really good shape. Obviously, just based on the degree, we'd have to look at how Mercury is interacting with the other planets and what aspects it's making as well. But generally speaking, it's in good shape. Now, if you have Mercury in the 6th house, which is the house that Virgo is typically attached to in modern astrology, but not under the sign of Virgo, let's just say you have your Mercury here. This could be someone who surrounds their thoughts a lot with how they can help or how they can be of service to others. This is someone who really, really likes to help out. This is someone who will look very closely at the bottom line, very closely at the fine print. They will check, and double check, and they will be someone who could think of many different outcomes to a situation before they will settle on one decision or one direction or one thought. Like, they will look at every possible outcome. They'll analyze things. This person also may be someone who thinks about health and their ability to earn often, because this is the house that does deal with our physical health and how we can earn money. The communication style of someone who may have their Mercury in the 6th house, I would say could be someone who could be quite well spoken, because Virgo is that kind of perfectionist energy, that kind of energy that likes to get things done right and properly. So this could be someone who's quite well spoken, someone who's also maybe reserved in their kind of communication style. Like, they're not, I don't want to say the life and soul of the party, but they're not someone who's overly extroverted. They could be quite introverted, and they might even be quite shy if someone has their Mercury in their 6th house. So you drop me a comment, you let me know, do you have your Mercury under Virgo? Do you have your Mercury in the 6th house? Do you know somebody who has this placement? And how does this resonate for you? Okay, so moving on, Mercury in Libra. Now, I call this my balanced thinker and strong communicator placement. And this is because Libra is that sign that deals with balance, fairness, relationships, connections with other people, love, and also, most importantly, justice. Now, the degree that Mercury is at under any sign, as I said throughout the video, will determine how Mercury operates, as well as what Mercury is doing with other planets in a chart, how he's interacting. But generally speaking, having Mercury under Libra, it is well suited at all degrees in astrology. And that is because of the nature of Libra itself, because of the nature of the sign. If you have Mercury under Libra at about the 21 degree point, we could say that this is a slightly strengthened Mercury, so it's in good shape, generally speaking, not based on anyone's chart or looking at what Mercury is doing with other planets. You could say it's in good shape. Now, if you have Mercury in the 7th house, which is the house that Libra is connected to in modern astrology, but under a different sign, this could be someone who has their faults, and it surrounds other people in their life. It surrounds their relationships with them. These are things that are key, how they interact with others. Things like marriage, romance, justice, and even starting up business could all be important, or they could have a really good mind for these areas of life. And one thing that I want to emphasize as well is that having Mercury under Libra, this is a natural diplomat. This could be someone who's naturally quite diplomatic in their temperament. So it would be a great thing to have this person around when there's conflicts going on or when people can't agree. Someone with their Mercury in Libra could be a great mediator and help to settle everything out and see where everyone's thinking, what they're feeling, and kind of reach a middle ground. Now, job wise or career wise, roles that involve, I would say, balance or finding fairness can really suit someone who has their Mercury under Libra. So you could be like a judge, could work in law enforcement, a lawyer, a solicitor, maybe even a financial advisor as well. So roles where you are helping people or you're passing some kind of judgment, and you're making judgments, I should say rather, that are based on fairness. This is really, really good for someone who has their Mercury under Libra. They could be really good at these particular jobs. Scorpio. Now, I actually do like this placement and I call this my conspiracy theorist placement. And this is because it is the sign that rules over and deals with the occult, the darker side of life, death, rebirth, crime, drugs, sex, privacy, witchcraft, astrology, tarot, all these things, all these wonderful occult things and occult knowledge you will find under Scorpio's domain. This is what this sign is about. So if you have your Mercury under this sign, obviously depending what degree it's at, that will show you how Mercury will operate, and that will depend on how Mercury will operate. But if you have your Mercury under Scorpio at about 21 degrees, we could say that this is slightly strengthened. The planet is in good position, or in a good shape, I should say, good shape, good position. But it does depend on what that Mercury under Scorpio at 21 degrees is doing with other planets in the chart as well. So keep that in mind. But generally speaking, 21-degree point to have Mercury, it's all good. Now, if you have Mercury in the 8th house, which is the house that Scorpio is typically attached to in modern astrology, but you don't have him under Scorpio, this could be someone who is a conspiracy theorist or has a love for conspiracy theories or has a good mind be a conspiracy theorist. This could be someone who likes to take a deep dive into the occult, tarot, astrology, witchcraft, science, the darker side of life. These are things that this person might enjoy, that might give them a good amount of mental stimulation if they have their Mercury in the 8th house. But on the other hand, this is the house of privacy, and Scorpio is the sign that deals with privacy and secrecy. So it could also be possible that someone who has their Mercury in their 8th house is likely to be quite a private person and keep their thoughts to themselves as well. The communication style of someone who has their Mercury in their 8th house could be very similar. They could be quite private. They could prefer one-to-one talking rather than being in large groups. But I would say someone with their Mercury in their 8th house could be someone who is deeply passionate, and even more so when they get upset or when they have a strong feeling about something. This could be someone who really, it comes out, it could come out quite a lot. They could be deeply passionate. So you let me know how this resonates. Do you have your Mercury under Scorpio? Do you like the occult? Do you like anything that Scorpio deals with? Do you spend a lot of time thinking about this? Are you a conspiracy theorist? Do you have your Mercury in your 8th house? Do you know someone who has? Drop me a comment. Let me know how this resonates for you. Okay, so Mercury in Sagittarius, I call this my spiritually inclined philosopher position. And this is a nice position, but it does have its challenges. So first of all, this particular sign, Sagittarius, is about adventure, philosophy, the views on the world, the theory of spirituality itself, and understanding this. It's about travel to far places and foreign things, situations, places, and things. It's about everything that is different and foreign. Now, what Sagittarius is going to do to Mercury is quite an interesting thing. If someone has their Mercury under this particular sign, this sign will weaken Mercury's energy, and this is because Sagittarius is the opposite sign to the sign that Mercury rules over, or one of the signs. So Sagittarius is opposite to Gemini. So these two signs see life very, very differently. They take a very, very different approach, And this is what makes them obviously opposite. All signs have opposite signs. And so if you have a planet in the opposite sign of the sign that the planet rules over, it's going to weaken that planet a little bit and maybe give it some challenges. So, to put that into context with Mercury, generally speaking, this could be challenges with a person's communication style. So it could even be that they have challenges saying how they feel, what's on their mind. They could have speech delays as a child or even as an adult. They could have stammers as a child or even as an adult. So generally their communication and how they put themselves across, this could come with some challenges, even if they don't have the speech delays and the stammers and so forth. But for some people it can bring that. Now, the degree that Mercury is at in any sign is going to obviously tell you a lot about how Mercury will operate, as well as how that particular Mercury is interacting with other planets in the chart. If a person does have their Mercury under Sagittarius at the 21 degree point, though, we do say that this is slightly strengthened. So even though Sagittarius will kind of weaken Mercury's energy and what Mercury's about, at that point it can gain a bit more strength. Now, if you have Mercury in the ninth house, which is the house that Sagittarius is typically attached to, but under a different sign, this could be someone who spends a lot of time thinking about the meaning of life. Like they are a real deep thinker. Things like philosophy, spirituality, they could even be well educated, or someone who enjoys higher education, going to university and learning and really gaining certificates and, really boosting themselves up with the knowledge that they know. This could really excite them or give them a lot of mental stimulation, or even be important to them, or what they think about a lot. Now, the communication style of someone who has their Mercury under Sagittarius, this could be someone who communicates based on the bigger picture. So they're not someone who has a really narrow viewpoint. When they're communicating with other people, they're able to take into consideration everybody's point of view, different sides of the story, and so forth. They're able to see the bigger picture and basically communicate based on this, like they don't have a tunnel vision. Now, I don't want anyone to worry if they have their Mercury under Sagittarius, because obviously I've explained to you that this is the sign that will place Mercury in detriment and will really weaken the energy. It's just something to be aware of, and there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration as well when we talk about planets in charts. So you would need to really look at how Mercury is interacting with the other planets that are in that person's chart. Is it conjunct with anything? Is it opposing anything? So you would really need to study what is going on with a person who has Mercury under Sagittarius in their birth chart a lot more deeper than you would someone who doesn't. So don't, just think, oh my God, my Mercury's damaged, it's weakened and so forth, and I have all these problems. Don't. Just reflect on it, see if it rings true for you, and really study your Mercury and study it from an angle of saying to yourself, well, what is this trying to show me about this particular life incarnation? What is this trying to show me? What is it that I need to develop, know, learn, or understand? Look at it as a moment to grow, or a moment to really understand yourself if you're someone who does have this placement. And again, anybody who wants to join me on Patreon, the links are below in the description box. I go through all this kind of stuff in a bit more detail, well, a lot more detail, with people individually on their charts as well. So if you want to join, hey, the link is there. But if you are someone who has your Mercury under Sagittarius, or you know someone who has, drop me a comment. How does this resonate for you or for them? Do you have your Mercury in your ninth house under another sign? Do let me know. Drop me a comment. How does any of this resonate for you? Okay, so Mercury under Capricorn, I call this my serious and mature thinker placement. And this is because Capricorn is that energy of hard work, dedication, maturity, discipline, and it can represent like the father figure, or someone who is quite authoritative in our life. So when you place Mercury under this kind of energy, you're bound to get someone who will think quite seriously and quite mature. Now, the degree that Mercury is at in any of the signs will obviously have an impact on how Mercury will operate. But if you have Mercury under Capricorn between the 7 to 12 degree or the 21 degree mark, we could say that this is a Mercury that has been slightly strengthened. So you may experience Mercury under Capricorn's energy of being the serious and mature thinker in quite a strong way in this person, or yourself if you have that degree mark on your particular Mercury. Now, if you have Mercury in the 10th house, but not under Capricorn, so the 10th house is the sign or the house that this particular sign is attached to in modern astrology, Capricorn. This could be someone who spends a lot of time thinking about their direction and their career. This is what's important to them. This is what's at the forefront of their mind. They're also thinking a lot about what they can achieve next and how in their life, because the 10th house, this is the house of achievement and where we're going. It's the house of fame, what we're known for. It's the house of our reputation, basically, and how the world publicly see us. So this could be someone who spends a lot of time thinking about those parts of their life or thinking about those concepts. The communication style of someone who has their Mercury in the 10th house, generally speaking, this could be someone who's quite mature, someone who is quite slower to respond or reach a conclusion with things, because they have to think and mull things over and be sure before they come to any certain conclusion. This person could be quite stern as well in their approach. So they could be someone who, when they're speaking, they could speak with authority, or they could come across as someone who's very authoritative, or they could have a really deep voice, or even a booming voice, or even a really commanding voice, the kind of communication that really grabs someone's attention, you could say. Someone who has their Mercury in the 10th house, they could be someone who takes a really tough love approach a lot of the time with how they communicate. So rather than sugarcoating everything, rather than making everything seem as though it's all fluffy and light and everything's going to be okay, this could be someone who's really going to be real when it's time to be real. They can really give that tough love advice, their ideas, their thoughts, what they think, whatever it is, they can come across in this particular style. If you have your Mercury in the 10th house, especially if you have your Mercury in the 10th house under Capricorn, I would say even more so. So let me know, drop me a comment. Do you have your Mercury under Capricorn? Do you have your Mercury in your 10th house? Let me know how this resonates. Drop me a comment and let's see. So, Mercury in Aquarius, I do like this placement a lot as an astrologer, and I call this my intellectual, inventor, and innovator position. And this is because Aquarius is the sign that deals with intelligence, facts, data, statistics, the truth. This is the sign that is concerned with humanity as a whole. So when you put Mercury, the planet of thoughts and communication, under an energy like this, it can be quite explosive in a real nice way. Now, the degree that Mercury is at under Aquarius or any sign will obviously impact on how Mercury operates, as well as how that person's Mercury is interacting with other planets in the chart as well. So you need to take that into consideration. But generally speaking, you could say that having your Mercury under Aquarius is very well suited, very, very well suited to this particular sign, because what this sign deals with and because of what Mercury is about. If you have your Mercury under Aquarius between 7 to 12 degrees or the 21 degree mark, we would say that this is a Mercury that is very strong and strengthened. So you may feel the energy of how Mercury operates under Aquarius quite strongly. Now, if you have Mercury in the 11th house, which is the house that Aquarius is attached to in modern astrology, but you have it under a different sign, doesn't matter, you have it in a different sign, or even if you have it under Aquarius in the 11th house, if you have it here, this could be someone who thinks very deeply about the world and humanity at large. You know, this is someone who's very, very concerned with what's going on around them. They are a big thinker. Now, they are someone with a very human and humane personality. They could be a real people person. They could get on with people well. They could be a very sociable person as well, because Aquarius is that sign about friendships, and this is the house that will include in a birth chart our friendships, our co-workers, people we network with, even people we meet on social media that we get on with really well. So those kind of people we have in our life, we would find in the 11th house. So having Mercury here could be someone who's quite sociable and quite good with people. Generally speaking, the person who has this placement, their hopes and dreams are something that they really think about and they plan for a great deal. So this is important to them. Their mind might be focused here a lot of the time. And someone with their Mercury in the 11th house, this could bring a natural innovator or inventor or creator. Someone who has this placement has the real ability, I would say, to change or impact the world or humanity at large. It's a wonderful place to have your Mercury, and a great sign to have your Mercury under, in my personal opinion, what I think as an astrologer. So you let me know, do you have your Mercury under Aquarius? Do you have it in your 11th house? Do you know someone who has? How does any of this resonate for you? And if you are someone who has your Mercury in Aquarius, then keep thinking, what are you inventing? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to impact humanity? Because I truly believe that you have the ability to do so. So keep thinking, my intellectual inventors and innovators. Okay, Mercury under Pisces. Now, this is what I call my emotional thinker and big dreamer placement. Now, there's a few things to get your head around and kind of remember when it comes to having Mercury under this particular sign. So Pisces is the sign that's attached to the 12th house of life in astrology. And this is the area of spirit communication, the spirit realm itself, past lives, mental well-being, large organizations, law, hospitals. This is where we find our hidden enemies, and this is the area of life where we can often feel held back, or we have something holding us back. So Pisces is kind of dealing with all these areas of life. Okay, now because Pisces is the opposite sign to Virgo, this is what will make Mercury a little bit difficult underneath this particular sign. So if you have any planet that is placed in the sign of the opposite sign of the sign that they rule over, it will weaken that planet. So in this context, if we have Mercury under Pisces, which is opposite to Virgo, which is one of the signs that Mercury rules over, it will make Mercury's energy slightly more dimmer. Okay, it will weaken it. So how this can show itself is that a person with their Mercury under Pisces could have some challenges with how they communicate. Now this could be, you know, how they think, how they feel, putting this across to people. They may have a speech delay, or they may have had a speech delay as a child. They may have a stammer, or they may have had a stammer as a child. Now that doesn't always happen. A person doesn't always have those kind of physical challenges with their actual speech with Mercury under Pisces, but we mustn't rule it out, because this is the planet of communication, and if someone is going to be weakened with their ability to communicate, it's not just mentally in how they think, it's also how they speak in their speech as well. So this is possible. Now, the degree that Mercury is under, as with all the signs, will impact on how Mercury operates itself, as well as what that particular Mercury in a person's chart is doing with other planets that's in that person's chart as well. So you need to take that into consideration. But generally speaking, if you have Mercury under Pisces, reflect on this. Do you have challenges with your communication? Do you have challenges with putting across how you think, you know, and what you want? Or if you know someone who has their Mercury under Pisces, does this resonate for them? Generally speaking, without looking at anyone's chart, if you have your Mercury under Pisces at about the 21-degree mark, this will strengthen your Mercury slightly. So the impact of having Mercury in a sign that weakens it, because it's the sign that's opposite to the sign that it rules, if you reach the 21-degree mark with your own Mercury, if it's at that point in your own chart, then you may not feel this so badly, and your Mercury is in a bit better shape compared to someone who has it at a different degree. Now, generally speaking, if you have Mercury in the 12th house, which is the house that this particular sign is attached to in modern astrology, this could be someone who thinks very, very deeply about spirituality, about spirit communication and connection, past lives. These kind of things could be heavy on your mind, and you could spend a lot of time researching or thinking about them. Like, you also could, it's quite possible, someone who has their Mercury in the 12th house, their thoughts could be what holds them back in life slightly. And it could be a matter of thinking things like, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this, or I'm not sure if this is for me, or, you know, just putting yourself down, or having a lack of confidence. So Mercury in that part of life, or in that house of life I should say, which is where we are held back, could make someone hold themselves back. I guess I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. And again, I don't want anybody to worry about this. I would like you to really reflect on this and think about it. Do your thoughts, or do the thoughts of the person who you know who has their Mercury in their 12th house, do you think that sometimes that's how they can hold themselves back? And I think you really need to be honest about yourself. And if you're someone who has this placement, or you're someone who knows someone with this placement, it's a good opportunity to really grow when you learn these little things about your chart, and you learn how astrology can impact on signs and what it does and this and that. You know, it's a good chance to grow. So really reflect on this. Now, the other thing that is really key about having Mercury in your 12th house is that things like depression or feeling low can impact this person, because as mentioned, this is the house of mental well-being. This is the house of what's hidden, how we hold ourselves back and all that kind of stuff. And if you have the planet which is to do with your thoughts and how you think in that kind of energy, it can bring on things like depression or feeling low sometimes. So reflect on that as well. Is that true for you? Do you know someone who has this placement? And oftentimes they do feel a bit low, or sometimes they can be a little bit depressed with their thoughts and how they feel. Now, the communication style of someone who has their Mercury in their 12th house could be very similar. This could be someone who's quite withdrawn, and communication can generally be a challenge for them for whatever reason, however it resonates, whether it's through their speech and they have like speech delays or so forth, or whether they don't, but they just find it hard to speak, you know, and hard to say what they want to say to other people. This can resonate as well with having a Mercury in the 12th house. Your overall communication style could be with, and could well be a challenge for you as well. This could be someone who's a lot more introverted. So you drop me a comment, you let me know how this resonates for you or the person that you're here for. Do you think that any of this is true? Have you experienced any of this? Do let me know, because I would love to hear, because I do find this to be quite an interesting placement, because you know, Pisces is that sign that does dream, that does think big and so forth. But when you have it, you know, under a planet like Mercury, it can be interesting how it resonates, and even more interesting depending on what house of life you have this in a birth chart. And if you have it in the 12th house, then it can be especially interesting, and it can be a real learning curve, as I said, and a moment for growth for anybody who does have this placement. So in summary then, just to wrap up, what we need to remember when it comes to the planet Mercury and our quick 101. Let me know, first of all, where your Mercury is and how any of this resonates. Let me know where your Mercury is. Let me know what sign it's under, and how true do you think any of this has been for you. And bear in mind that Mercury, when we look at Mercury as a planet, this is going to tell us, when it comes to a person, how this person thinks, how they communicate, and what they think is important in life, what is important to them. So this is a really good planet to help you understand someone, and this is a really good planet to look at in a person's birth chart and to study when you do relationship astrology and you do synastry, and you see if two people are compatible. It doesn't even have to be two people in a romantic relationship. I've done synastry with my own chart with my friends. I've done it with family members. You can do it with anyone. But if you can understand and get your head around what Mercury represents for a person in their birth chart, it can really give you a good indication of, you know, how well you might gel with that person or how people might get on. Keep in mind as well that things like the sign is going to influence how Mercury operates and how that person thinks and what's important to them, as well as the house of life that it's in a birth chart. Mercury is going to return for everyone, for all of us, once, maybe twice a year, because of all of the retrogrades. And remember, when Mercury returns to the point that Mercury was at the time of your birth, at the time of my birth, at the time of your neighbour's birth, it's really going to show us what can be going on for the next year mentally for us, like what we're going to be thinking about or where we should be directing our energy. So Mercury return charts are really great to look at. If we have a retrograde, which Mercury does do often, remember, retrograde is a chance for us to go back to a situation, person, place, or thing. And depending on the planet that's retrograding, that will tell us what we should be doing when we go back. So with Mercury, we should go back and think about something, a situation, person, place, or thing. And what that should be will obviously depend on where Mercury is going to retrograde in your own chart. So if Mercury, for example, retrogrades in Gemini, depending on where Gemini is in your chart, that's the house of life, or that's the area of life that Mercury is going to be urging you to go back to. So this is why it's quite important and quite good to understand how to apply what's going on in the cosmos generally to your own birth chart, or to the birth chart of someone that you know, so you can kind of use the universe's energy to kind of manifest and go through life. It is really, really helpful. It's served me, and I know it has served people before us, you know, our ancestors before us, and it can serve you as well. So do check out this week's Mercury direct reading. It should be up soon. If it's not already up, I did a reading in, it'll either be tarot or a teacup reading. And also do check out Patreon as well. The links are below. It might just pop up here somewhere where I'm speaking. If you check the description box, anyone who joins me, you'll get your free numerology report from me as well as all the goodies that you get when you join me up on Patreon. And we can really work together and start applying some of what's going on in the cosmos to you in your life, and you can use it to create that life that you want, that you deserve, and which you should have, which we should all have. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to leave this video here. Do drop me a comment. Let me know how this resonates. Give the video a like if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video.